Hi MPC family, hi MPC kids, it's Miss Kristen. I'm here today to bring a children's sermon for you all, and I wish we could be gathered on the steps, kids, but we'll be doing this from you in your home and me in my home, and I hope we can be together again soon. And as a church family, we're going to be talking about how when we live with Jesus, we can be transformed. So I have a question for you today. When you hear the word transformed, what do you think of? Well, the dictionary tells us that when we transform, or when something transforms, it means that it makes a dramatic change, either in the way it looks or in the way someone or something acts. Now, I've been thinking of, or trying to think of, ways to help you kids of MPC better understand what the word transformed actually means. And God brought me an amazing example the other day when Levi and Luke and I were walking behind our house near the canal. And so as we were walking along the water, Levi all of a sudden goes, Mommy, look at all of this stuff. There's this black stuff that is in the water. And so I walked over to him wondering what in the world could he be finding in the water. And all of a sudden I look down and I see this. There are hundreds of little tiny black specks, which were frog eggs that had just turned into tadpoles, and they were frantically swimming all over trying to figure out where to go. And I thought to myself, tadpoles are the perfect example of how to explain transformation and just what kind of change God can make in our lives. So in order for frog eggs to become big frogs, they have to go through a pretty amazing change. First, they start off as eggs. Then they start to develop a tail, and they become a tadpole. And then they start swimming and swimming and swimming, and over time, eventually, they develop back legs. And then after some more change in time, they develop front legs. And then eventually, those frog eggs turn into full-grown frogs. And an adult frog looks nothing like it did when it was an egg, or even when it was a baby tadpole. These frogs had to go through an amazing, huge transformation. And you know, the Bible tells us that Jesus transformed the lives of people he encountered. He transformed them by healing them physically from diseases and sickness, sometimes by placing his hands on them, sometimes by just using the words he spoke. Jesus transformed people by giving his followers new names because they had new identities and their hearts and lives had changed so much they deserved a new start. And Jesus also changed the lives and hearts of people he had been interacting with by helping them when they've been making poor decisions. Their hearts changed so much that they began to be more accepting, to be more loving, and be more compassionate to those around them just because they had spent time with Jesus. Whenever people encountered Jesus, whenever they spent time with him and believed and followed him, they were transformed. And the Bible promises us that that same change can happen for us today. We too can go through a transformation when we know and follow Jesus. When we draw near to him through reading the Bible, through praying, and place our trust in him, we can't help but be transformed by the way he lived, the way he spoke, and the way he treated and loved others. Now, our transformation won't necessarily happen overnight. It might take time, like it took time for the baby frogs to turn into a big frog. But when we live our lives following Jesus, something will change. It may be in the way we look. It may be in the way we treat others, or how we feel deep in our hearts. But I guarantee you, the more time we spend with Jesus, the more like Jesus we become. We will be transformed by him.
Hello, MPC family. My name is Caitlin, and this is Isla. And today we're going to teach the children a little children's song to go with Kristen's children's story. Now, I'm going to sing, and then you can sing with Isla.
Yeah.
The words are, come follow me, where Jesus leads, oh, I will go. What Jesus says, I will do. Come follow me. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Come follow me.
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 Where Jesus leads,
Where Jesus leads,
oh, I will go.
oh, I will go.
What Jesus says,
What Jesus says,
oh, I will do.
oh, I will do.
Where Jesus leads,
Where Jesus leads,
oh, I will go.
oh, I will go.
What Jesus says,
What Jesus says,
oh, I will do.
oh, I will do.
Here we go. And Jesus says, come follow me.
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 Come follow me. All right, that's it. Thank you, and I hope that you have a wonderful Sunday.
Today's scripture reading is found in John chapter 21, verses 1 through 19. Later, Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. This is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there: Simon Peter, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of thunder, and 2 other disciples. Simon Peter said, I'm going fishing. We'll come too, they said. So they all went out in the boat, but caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who it was. He called out, fellows, have you caught any fish? And they yelled, no. Then he said, throw out your net on the right side of the boat, and you'll get some. And so they did, and they couldn't haul the net in because it was so filled with fish. Then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. And when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, for he had stripped down to work, jumped into the water and headed to shore. The others stayed with the boat and pulled the loaded net to the shore, for they were only about 100 yards from shore. And when they got there, they found breakfast waiting for them, fish cooking over charcoal fire, and some bread. Bring some of the fish you just caught, Jesus said. So Simon went aboard and dragged the net to shore. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net hadn't torn. Now come and have some breakfast, Jesus said. None of the disciples dared to ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Then Jesus served them the bread and the fish. This was the 3rd time Jesus had appeared to his disciples since he had risen from the dead. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, Peter replied, you know I love you. Then feed my lambs, Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, Peter said, you know I love you. Then take care of my sheep, Jesus said. A 3rd time, he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Now Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a 3rd time. He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. I tell you the truth. When you were young, you were able to do as you liked. You dressed yourself, you went wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and others will dress you and take you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to let him know by what kind of death he would glorify God. Then Jesus told him, follow me.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be with you today. Thank you for tuning in to our service. It's a privilege to be able to share with you a little bit from John chapter 21. We are continuing a series that Dr. Gren started last week. We're looking at the lived experience with Jesus. What happens when Jesus interacts with people, and how are their lives transformed? And today we get to look at the story in John chapter 21 of Peter. And it's really the pivotal moment in Peter's story that launches him into a time of preaching the gospel and being one of the primary leaders in the church in Jerusalem. So if you have a Bible there with you, please turn with me to John chapter 21. We're going to be walking through most of this story. I'm going to read parts of it, but some of it I'll be summarizing along the way. The Apostle Peter is one whose devotion to Jesus turns out to be unwavering in the story of the early church. Peter preaches the gospel of Jesus and lives a life of witness and testimony to that gospel that eventually gets him crucified. But church tradition tells us that Peter has such reverence for Jesus that he refuses even to be crucified in the same manner that Jesus was. And instead, Peter requests to be crucified upside down. John the Baptist says in one of the stories of the Gospels that he is unworthy even to untie the sandals of Jesus. Peter goes that one step further and says he is unworthy even to die the way Jesus died. Peter's story in many ways is how we hope our story ends. Peter's story ends in wholehearted devotion and worship to Jesus. But that's not how Peter's story begins. There are 2 points I want to emphasize today as we look at this story in John 21. The first is that Peter needs redemption. Peter needs redemption, and I think we'll see along the way that we also need redemption. And the second point is that Jesus offers a surpassing measure of redemption. Peter needs redemption, and Jesus offers a surpassing measure of redemption. The introduction of this episode gives me the distinct impression that Peter and the rest of the disciples are still at a loss as to what it is they're supposed to be doing. The first 3 verses of John 21 say, "Afterwards, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. 'I'm going out to fish,' Simon Peter told them. And they said, 'We'll go with you.'" This episode happens sometime after the resurrection. The story that happens just previously to this one in John chapter 20. John tells us it takes place a week after the resurrection in his account. So this episode in John 21 is sometime even after that. So more than a week after the resurrection has taken place. And when we pick up this story in John 21, Jesus has already appeared to his disciples twice previous to this episode. And now the disciples are sitting around, they're back in Galilee, and they still don't quite seem to know what to do. And Peter does something here that we are so prone to doing ourselves. When we are dejected, discouraged, unsure of ourselves, feeling defeated, not feeling very hopeful, not feeling very faithful, what do we tend to do? Well, we tend to go back to our old way of life before we met Jesus. And this is exactly what Peter does. He thinks to himself, I've got no idea what I'm supposed to do now. The life I thought I was living, the life of a disciple, the life of a follower, that life is gone. Jesus had given me a new life. Jesus had given me new purpose, but now Jesus is gone. What am I supposed to do? Well, I still know how to fish, so let's go fish. And almost as if the disciples are so fed up with just sitting around, they are so keen for someone to suggest anything other than sitting around wondering what to do, they jump at the chance to go fishing with Peter. We'll go with you. We don't know what else to do, but we know how to fish. So let's fish. They're already showing some signs of abandoning the new purpose that Jesus had given them. Jesus told them they would no longer be fishermen. Jesus told them they would no longer be fishermen. But just like us, when they're at a loss, they go back to that old life. And just to let the symbolism play out a little bit further, the text tells us that when they went back to that old life and they spent the night fishing, they caught nothing. Early the next morning, Jesus is standing on the shore. And it's one of these episodes where Jesus calls to them and they don't know that it's him. Jesus says, "Friends, haven't you caught any fish?" And this is a question that is like squeezing lemon juice on an open paper cut. It stings because, of course, they haven't caught anything. They're still out on the water. It's early in the morning. They're still trying to fish, so they haven't caught anything. The disciples seem to be dejected and depressed, not just in the fact that they've gone out fishing again, but even in the way they are approaching the fishing itself. They've fished most of the night and not caught anything. And as day breaks, they know that the good fishing time is over. And then they see this man standing on the beach who tells them to throw their nets on the other side of the boat. Why in the world would they take fishing advice from the guy standing on the shore? They're dejected. They're defeated. They'll try anything. I get the sense that they are so down and so dejected that they'll do anything to get back just a little bit of that joy and abundance that they knew when they were walking with Jesus. This is us. When we're feeling down, dejected, defeated, we'll try anything for a little bit of happiness. I'll start exercising. That'll make me feel better. I'll start eating healthier. That'll make me feel better. Ooh, I'll declutter my house. That'll make me feel better. Maybe I should declutter my mind, and that'll make me feel better. All of these things are good things. Yes, exercise, it's good for you. Eat healthier, it's good for you. Decluttering your house, decluttering your mind, these can be good things. But none of these things are going to fill that emptiness in our lives that only Jesus fills. C.S. Lewis put it this way. He called it a longing for we know not what. A longing for we know not what. See, we need redemption. We need salvation. We need restoration in place of our dejection and our depression and our defeat. So the disciples say, "What the heck? Throw the nets on the other side of the boat and let's see what happens." And then the miracle happens. It reminds me so much of a couple of other stories in the Gospels. This is another post-resurrection story where Jesus appears to his disciples, but his disciples don't realize that it's him. On the road to Emmaus, Jesus walks for miles with two of his disciples and expounds the scriptures to them and ends up going into their house and sitting down with them, and they still don't realize it's Jesus. The same thing is happening here in John chapter 21. In the story in Luke chapter 24, the road to Emmaus, it is Jesus sitting down to a meal, breaking bread, and giving it to them. It's the liturgy of the Last Supper that causes the disciples to realize that it is Jesus. Here in this story, in John chapter 21, it's the reminder that Jesus is the miracle worker that causes the disciple whom Jesus loved to declare, "It is the Lord." And then Peter's response to recognizing who Jesus is remarkably similar to the time that he saw Jesus walking on the water. Just like in that storm, when Peter realizes it's Jesus, he gets out of the boat as quickly as he possibly can. It's almost a physical manifestation of leaving that old life behind again. Once more, I'm getting out of this fishing boat. Peter needs redemption, and he knows that the only person who can give it to him is Jesus. As soon as we realize that we need redemption because we, like Peter, have denied Jesus in our lives. As soon as we recognize that the fulfillment that is lacking in our lives, that the satisfaction that has slipped through our fingers so many times, as soon as we realize that the truth that we've been searching for, the life that we've always wanted, is only found in Jesus, then we ought to be diving out of the boat just like Peter did. Now, when they all reach the shore, Peter's soaking wet because he's dove out of the boat and swum to shore. The disciples dragging this massive catch of fish in the boat behind them. When they all reach the shore, Jesus already has the breakfast fire going. This whole story is leading up to the exchange between Jesus and Peter that we're about to read. But before we can get there, Jesus makes breakfast. Jesus washes their feet the night before he is crucified. He washes their feet like a servant when he should have been the guest of honor. And here he makes breakfast for them as the host at a seaside table when he could have asked them to make breakfast for him. And that brings us to chapter 21, verses 15 to 17. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." And again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." I wonder, those of you who have ever had a fight with a loved one, maybe a spouse or a child or a best friend, those of you who have gone through divorce or those of you who have experienced the death of a loved one, you might understand that the last words that you say to a person can ring in your ears over and over and over, haunting you, especially if those were words that were said out of anger or pride or rejection. Every argument I've ever had with my wife, Brittany, or every harsh word that I've ever spoken to my kids, the last thing that I say in those situations echoes in my mind over and over until there is restoration, forgiveness, some repair in the relationship. This is what I think is happening for Peter. And I think this is part of the reason why Peter, after 2 times of seeing Jesus after the resurrection, Peter and the other disciples, they still don't know what to do. This is why they've gone back fishing. This is why Peter is still lost. His words of betrayal have not been addressed. The echo of his 3 denials still rings in his ears. In fact, I imagine that for Peter, everything that comes in a set of 3 makes Peter's heart hurt. He sees 3 birds fly overhead, and he remembers that he denied Jesus 3 times. He sees 3 men cleaning their nets after a night of fishing, and he remembers that he denied Jesus 3 times. It's like when you buy that nice red car that you've always wanted, and then all of a sudden, every car is a nice red car. Peter can't help but see everything in sets of 3 because he still needs redemption. But even though Peter hangs his head, even though Peter goes back to fishing, God isn't finished with Peter yet. God knows that even though it is still Crucifixion Friday in Peter's mind, Sunday's coming. God is a God of resurrection, a God of new life, of redemption and restoration and salvation. We need that redemption because we, like Peter, are chained to our past. We need that redemption, but we remember every single terrible thing that we've done. We need that redemption, but it's still Crucifixion Friday in our minds. But Sunday is coming. Verses 18 and 19. Very truly I tell you, Jesus said, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And then Jesus said to him, "Follow me." Peter needed redemption because he had denied Jesus. We need redemption because we have denied Jesus. But Jesus offers a surpassing measure of redemption. For every time that Peter denied him, for every time that we deny him, Jesus offers a surpassing measure of redemption. This is grace. Peter doesn't deserve redemption. Jesus offers it anyway. This is a greater grace. This is a greater redemption than what Peter deserves. This is what he receives here. It's not an equal measure of good to cancel out a bad. This is an overflowing cup of the choicest wine at the table of the king. This is not just a canceled debt. This is the offer of inexhaustible treasures from Peter's Father in heaven. The structure of the narrative even reflects this. Jesus asks Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" 1 time for each of Peter's denials. And this is where the text tells us Peter's heart is hurt because Jesus asked him a 3rd time. Remember, Peter's seeing everything in 3s, and this is a profound set of 3. But Jesus goes beyond these 3 questions. He tells Peter how he will live a life of suffering, following even in Jesus' own suffering footsteps. And then he offers to Peter once more, "Follow me." It's the exact same call that Jesus offered to Peter when he found him the first time on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. This final call, this "follow me," demonstrates the asymmetry of restoration, the asymmetry of redemption. Peter's denials and betrayal haven't simply been canceled out, 3 for 3. Peter gets a whole new start. Peter, come, follow me. Peter, I still want to use you. I'm going to use the broken pieces of your rock to build my church. And Jesus then waits patiently for Peter and for each of us. For every wrong that we've done, Jesus offers forgiveness. For every denial, he offers redemption. For every brokenness, Jesus offers healing. And he offers more than enough. He offers more than we need. He fills us to overflowing. He makes us lie down in green pastures. He leads us beside still waters. He restores our souls. It doesn't matter what's in your past. It doesn't matter what shifting sand you have built your life on up until now. It doesn't matter what betrayal, brokenness, bitterness, or lies haunt you today. Jesus offers redemption. And then he offers you the same call that he offered Peter. Will you follow him?